Welcome to the discussion today on the Future of Equities webinar hosted by Afore Consulting. One of the key policy challenges for most companies is that equity tends to be the most appropriate form of financing rather than debt. The existence of liquid equity markets in terms of the secondary equity markets is essential function for primary markets. The primary and secondary markets both require high quality and affordable data. So it looks to me from the outside as if corporates are not being serviced well necessarily through the primary markets. And if that's the case, then the question is why?
So on primary markets, what we see in line with what Daniel was saying at the beginning is the data confirms the relative decline of public markets. So it's clear that the sort of cost of becoming a public company has risen considerably in the last recent decades. And if we want to boost public markets, public equity markets, I think we see there's two big groups to think about. So two key groups to think about. One, the mid caps, and the other group, perhaps less discussed in some policy discussions, but very important in some parts of Europe, is family-run companies. Then on the secondary market side, as Tilman was alluding to, we do see the benefits of competition. We do see some very good outcomes in the larger financial centres, particularly in Western Europe, in terms of spreads and implementation shortfall, obviously, of course, trading volumes. But some sort of lagging behind from some of the smaller financial centres and some of the financial centres in Eastern Europe. And also we see SMEs, the gap between liquidity on large caps versus smaller caps. There is still quite a differential, and we think those are the areas where there's the biggest room for improvement from a sort of market outcomes perspective for policymakers.
Allow me maybe to be a little bit more holistic regarding what are currently the French government's priorities. It's rather on equity rather than on markets. By saying that, it's clear that the French economy has to face quite heavy challenges, as all European economies. It's about rescue, it's about recovery, and it's about resilience. And here we have to deal with different horizons. I mean, rescue is of course very short term. Recovery, it's about short term too. Resilience, maybe a little bit more about medium term. And here we see that we have to deal with very short term issue, mostly at national level. And then we shouldn't forget about a little bit more medium term issues and better dealt with at European level.
I'd like to make four comments. The first around the nature of the markets. And one of the key reasons for sort of the decline in numbers is that we're facing a resurgence of private equity as a substitute for public funding. So new technologies are enabling privately held companies, to reach through to end investors, to motivate their employees and provide a lot of the benefits that the public markets could. Public markets, I think, have not done good enough a job in servicing SMEs. A lot more can be done from that perspective.
The primary markets today do not work. And as the disruptor on this panel today, I'd like to sort of put my views as to why we think this doesn't work and what needs to happen and how we need to change this. And one thing, we talk about primary markets, we talk about secondary markets, and we talk about data here, the consolidated tape. But all three are intricately linked. You can't have a primary market without having a good secondary market. Why? Because if you want to raise capital, you want to raise capital at the most efficient and cost-efficient way, and you can only do that if you have good liquid secondary markets. And we look at this, companies, great companies, they start small, they grow, and they mature. And the problem we have today tends to be regulation and trading mechanisms that actually are a one-size-fits-all. That is not appropriate. And the message I think we need to get across very clearly is proportionality and appropriateness. We don't send sort of 5-year-old children off to university, and we don't take 18-year-olds and put them into primary school. Companies need to have that appropriateness, and the regulation and the trading needs to do that.